Hey, if you're an Amazon.com shopper, you can help Southgate Media Group out by visiting southgatemediagroup.com. There you'll find a link to log into your Amazon account, and a % of your purchase will go to help support all the shows on Southgate Media Group. We also offer Patreon if you prefer that way, and any way you can help, we appreciate. Now, thank you, and enjoy the show.
This is Dan.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action. This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Birthright, and you're listening to
the All Things Kryptonian podcast, including Superman and Supergirl.
We discuss games, movies, cartoons, TV shows, and comics.
Find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Today we're discussing Zack Snyder's Justice League, premiering on HBO Max. I just want to throw this out there. This will be a spoiler-filled episode, but I also want to throw out there that I do know that this film was rated R. I do think that they could have worked around the language and the violence a little bit. I also, as a respectable parent, screened the film, searched information to find out what content was in the film. With that said, my children did see it. My son has been a very huge advocate wanting to watch this since the first trailer dropped. And then, of course, my daughter did as well. The violence was quick enough in a lot of the scenes that they didn't notice, and that it was very video gamey at the same time, so that there wasn't anything too harsh for them. And as far as the language, I'm not a huge fan of, but they do have a very loose-tongued aunt whom they love, who is around a lot, whom they hear such words from. With that being said, I just wanted to put that out there before I get any kind of criticism for allowing my young children to see this, because I do think that these characters are appeal to children, and it's something that should be considered. I do understand artistic integrity, and I do understand a vision, and I get all that. And I just wanted to put that out there. So enjoy the discussion. And here with their quick thoughts are my two loving children who are excited to talk to you.
Hey guys, it's me, Solomon Archer Patrick, and I want to talk about the Snyder Cut. Well, what I liked about the Snyder Cut, that at the end, when Joker comes, that was a really cool part, right guys? It is really awesome. I thought Supergirl was going to be on it, but no Supergirl, and we just don't have no Supergirl. I wanted the Supergirl to be on it, but we have no. I like the Steppenwolf. I like Spikes. Spikes are my favorite, guys. Superman's black suit was dope, guys. How do you love it? I think it's awesome when Darkseid stepped on Steppenwolf's head. Cool as. My favorite character is Batman and Steppenwolf. I like Batman. I like Batman because he has a Nightcrawler. You think that was dope, guys? I think it's dope. And I like Steppenwolf because in the Snyder Cut movie, the theatrical cut, there's one favorite line, and I will talk about it. When Superman says, I don't want to die, and Cyborg and Superman explode the mother box, and he says, actually, I do want to die. That's my favorite lines in the theatrical cut. But we're talking about the Snyder Cut. So we're not talking about the theatrical cut or anything. That's it for me. But Selah is going to go right now.
Hey, me, Selah Rose. Why did Darkseid do these powers in it, Daddy? I like the blood don't scare me in it, but when I step on his head, that's a cool part. Darkseid.
Why?
Because he's so cool in Flash.
You like the Flash?
Yeah, and Darkseid.
Yeah, what'd you like about the Flash?
Well, the Flash was left the pride, right? By the Flash.
Hello, I am the Superman of Blue, the man of tomorrow. My name is Tyler Patrick, and I am here with my co-host, the Superman of Red, the Man of Steel, Mr. James Cole. But wait, I also have the last son of Krypton, Bryan, And special guest, the maid of might, the woman of all my desire, the beauty, the wonderful Junia is here with us tonight. Say hello, everybody.
Hello.
Junia, ooh la la.
I know, right? You're so sweet to me.
We got all four of us, and we have comments that cut in from the children, because did we ever think this day would come? I mean, let's put this in perspective.
We hoped for a very long, well, not shorter than we expected.
Our daughter was just born when the theatrical cut was released of this.
Yeah.
And what's even crazier is, okay, so I wrote this the other day. October of 2014 is when Warner Brothers officially announced Ezra Miller was the Flash, Jason Momoa was Aquaman, and that Ray Fisher was Cyborg. The day after the Flash TV series debuted, and they released their whole slate of all the movies that never came to be.
I remember that day.
So
that was a good day.
So here we are in 2021, and we're finally seeing the movie that we were promised / led
that we
to
deserve
coming. So think about that. I mean, James and I have talked before about how they announced BVS a month after Man of Steel, and Affleck was cast in August of 2013 to be Batman. So I mean,
it's kind of like going to your favorite restaurant, ordering your favorite meal, and it comes out like a pile of hot garbage. So you send it back, and then you sit there and you wait a little bit. Like, is it going to come out good? Like, this is my favorite dish. Is it going to come out the way it's supposed to be? And then when you finally get it in front of you and it's the way it should be, that's how I feel this day.
I am happy. I just, you know what? One thing I'm going to say up front right now is I am not going to dwell on all the negativity from people and all the hate and just, I'm not even going to go down that road. I mean, we could spend hours arguing about the things that people say, but it's just nice to be in a place where I don't have to feel ashamed of Justice League. Like the movie that I was so anticipating and waiting for that, when we watched it, it was like this was not what we told it was coming. This was not what we were promised. I mean, especially for me.
I mean, out of DCEU films, liking Justice League is the only one that you were, ashamed to like.
Yeah, and I mean, you shouldn't feel that way. And the fact that I followed every trailer, every video clip, every piece of news that Snyder put out that was released, hearing him talk, and then seeing the movie what is this? And then afterwards, no one had ever heard of Vero until they're like, yeah, Zack Snyder left Twitter and is on Vero. All right, let's get on Vero. And then it was like pictures.
Well, they came out with that commercial that the Snyder Cut movement made Vero what it is now.
Yeah, because Zach went over there, so people are like, oh, let's find out what this is. Well, that's just a little history of putting into place where this movie is and how important this is, and and I said this before. Do you guys know what movie I think helped make the Snyder Cut possible? Because it showed that movie studios were listening to fans.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic the Hedgehog. Because when Sonic's trailer first came out, immediately on Twitter it exploded with change his design. And the studio was like, okay. And they changed it, and Sonic was a hit.
And say, what was uglier, Mustache Gate or Sonic?
Mustache.
Considering Henry is just a beautiful man regardless, kind of like you, James. I'm gonna have to go
Oh,
with Sonic.
shucks.
Sonic was the worst crime. Because he looked like that. He looked like when that kid turned into a monkey in Jumanji.
He did. I never put that together.
All right. So, one thing is, I was thinking about this. You know, this film was 4 hours, and I give it a little leeway when it comes to, like, people are overcritical with, like, CG and effects and stuff, and I'm like, just thinking about how much is in this film, there was still a lot of work they had to do in post. So, like, I'm, like, you know, lenient on, oh, maybe the CG could have been rendered a little bit more in this scene.
There's a few things that maybe, you know, they could have gone another pass or so on some CGI, but for the most part, and with that movie being like one of the most CGI heavy movies like in existence, like it looked phenomenal. And
yes.
You're talking about all this alien, all these alien creatures and beings and things like that, and these huge epic action sequences that are full of like Themyscira, CGI horses.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And that was a good thing too, or else Junia would have just like turned it off, went in the room and curled up in a ball and cried.
Well, yeah, I mean, Steppenwolf like shot put a horse with an Amazon on it.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty dope.
I just have to point out, like, this film was basically put out for the fans. Like, how could we complain about it, honestly?
Us fans? No. But do we have to put on our Battle Symphony armor and get ready to fight every person out there? Yes.
Yeah.
Because they're all overcritical of everything.
Yeah.
Because it's the same movie. It's the same exact movie.
That's just like saying, you know, that Black Panther is just the Lion King. Or that Avatar just dances with wolves. Or Pocahontas. It's the same movie. I mean,
yeah, but Dances with Wolves, did they mate with their hair? I can't remember.
That's because the devil's in the details, Brian. If you don't look at the details of anything, then it's the same thing.
Brian, you know they didn't mate with their tails, right?
No, it was with their hair, with the
Yes, they didn't mate with those. That was a neurological link.
Welcome to Always
that had nothing to do with the sex they had, right?
Oh yeah, you would know, right?
Damn right.
So
I'm a little scared by that.
I see what's going on here.
Good.
So
got the desired effect.
So what was your first thought when you saw the aspect ratio? Like when you hit play and you saw that little thing, that little purple bar come up and it said the film was presented in the 4:3 aspect ratio to, stick with Zack's intended view? Did it did you feel weird at all, like going back to that type of like viewing?
I mean, I was kind of like, huh, okay. You know, I prefer, you know, like 16:9. But it showed to me that they were really taking his vision seriously and what he wanted. But it also gave me extreme hope for this to be in IMAX one day. Because that is the ratio for IMAX. So I was totally cool, and I was very surprised by it.
And now
after seeing the trailers this long, like if you just went in and seen it and it had the 4:3 ratio, you'd be like, what is this? But people were able to see it and kind of get used to it. So when it starts, you know, I don't know, it wasn't jarring or anything.
No, and now we can watch.
See on a smaller television it could be.
Yeah.
But these days, not very many people have too small of a television.
And now you can watch Batman v Superman thanks to yesterday's update on your digital file in the now 4:3 aspect ratio, which I might do because I'm kind of curious since I'm so used to seeing that in the 16:9, like how it's going to be different. So, But I told Bryan and
It
Junia
looked
this,
great for the wide shots, big time.
that I consider this film post-crisis. That's how everything works in my brain. See, we got theatrical Justice League, and then Crisis happened, and now it is post-crisis Justice League.
Good thought.
So, all right, so let's get into this. The film is divided into 6 chapters with a prologue and an epilogue. And the prologue basically starts right at Superman's death. And I thought it takes place pretty much inside that scene if you're watching BVS, where it's just like a giant mass of energy, and it's slowed down so we can see Superman screaming as he dies.
I thought that was so cool. So very well done.
Like, they opened on a grand scale in the slow motion, the panning around everything, the waves from his death throes flying out, and seeing it from a perspective of like Bruce, Diana, and Lois outside of that, and then the way the voice opens up and hits, Gotham City, Metropolis, then Atlantis, and then Themyscira. Like, in the first few minutes, they cross the entire, in some of the biggest civilizations on Earth in the DC universe.
They let you know that, and like as Junia put it, what Luther said made a lot more sense. Like, the bell had been rung.
Yeah, it's nice to see how that the communion happened as the mother box called out when Superman died.
Right. It made that seem so much more just tighter. And
like what we got to see in BVS was the end of it. What we were seeing there was the very beginning.
And I want everyone to think about this because we'll bring it up more. How long do you think Superman was dead for? Just think about that as we discuss, because I want to try to go in somewhat of an order, but it's also kind of hard because there's so much to talk about.
I'd say roughly 90 days.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm starting to go to. It's like 2 to 3 months maybe. But what I find fascinating as we go into this is scenes that are in the theatrical cut that clearly look, and you can tell Snyder, that weren't in this cut. And James and I were talking about it off mic and everything, was maybe those are scenes that were suggestions from Berg and Johns that Zack filmed and then was like, you know what, I'm not gonna use those. Like, so he was truly sticking to what he filmed in his mind for this cut.
Yeah, I think he filmed, and you do anyways, you film a number of different takes on a scene. So he used takes. He had to have done takes that Berg and Johns were on set, babysitting him and trying to plug in theirs and studio suggestions, on trying to laugh it up and change the tone and things like that. So I'm sure he had to shoot their scenes, and then he shot them how he wanted to do them.
Yeah. So, because
absolutely,
one thing watching this movie was weird is like certain scenes in this movie I have lived with certain sounds behind it. So like having watched the trailer so much and hearing like the music in the trailer, and then even scenes that were music in the theatrical cut with like a certain musical score behind it, then watching a scene for like the third time with like new music behind it or new sound behind it was weird. Like it just was kind of odd. Like certain parts, I was like,
yeah, there are some places where some lines are removed, and it you can still hear them in the back of your head, in the back of your mind, when certain things happen. Say like the tunnel scene when it's flooding and Victor takes off flying. You know, they had the ADR flash. Did he just leave us or something? You know, once in a while you can just kind of, when you watch and you see him fly off, you're like right in the back of your head. It's like.
Well, my favorite is Arthur landing on the Batmobile and going, yeah! Because if you watch the Snyder Cut, his mouth moves, but there's no yeah that comes out in the audio. Because I was like, wait a minute. Where is this? And then I watched it again, like, oh, his mouth is moving, but he's not saying it.
It kind of makes you realize how cheesy that moment really was initially.
I mean,
Boom.
It's just, that just stuck out always, like other parts was the dress like a bat. I dig it. Like, and then Batman does it may be temporary. Like,
I feel like
it's kind of. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I feel like those moments right there, like the yeah and the dress like the bat, I dig it, was like the studio being like, hey, Jason, we want a couple like funny lines right here. And they're like, just be yourself, and he's just like, dress like a bat. I dig it. That's Jason Momoa.
I don't think he acted this entire movie. Hey, Jason, just be yourself, man.
Well, that's what they said. Okay. That's what they said about his wardrobe. Just came on set with whatever he was wearing that day. Yeah, you're good to go.
Right.
Just go out on set.
Well, he even said that Michael Wilkinson really included him in the whole costuming process and taking his ideas, and that just proves to me, like, he was like, hey, I like this outfit. What do you think, Mike? Yeah. All right, you can wear that, Jason. Go ahead out there. Thanks, man.
Yeah. It's kind of like the studio wanted him probably to be surfer dude because of his, Polynesian background.
Yeah. And he was like, nah, going for underwater biker.
Underwater
right.
biker.
Underwater.
It's like the Lobo meets Aquaman right there.
I mean, yeah.
Where can I sign up to be an underwater biker? and how's the bike work? Like, what does it run on? Like, is it do I have to like paddle in the ocean and is it like what the heck are those things called? You go out
paddle
the lake
boat? A paddle boat?
Yeah, paddle boat.
Yeah, the paddle boat. Yeah.
How would that work underwater?
So here's something I thought was interesting. Like, I have all these notes here.
Yeah, ignore me, whatever.
So Bryan and I watched Man of Steel and then BVS. And part of what they said was the Codex was supposed to play into how Superman was brought back to life. The Codex had no point in any of these movies. Really didn't Man of Steel part, but other than that, like, it didn't serve as any plot point for Justice League.
I don't know. Was that something that Goyer had in mind?
No, Snyder said it before, like, about the Codex being part of what would bring him back. So, I don't know.
The only thing about the Codex that would have been somewhat interesting to bring back would be who the heck Skull that was, because the Codex, before it gets encoded in Superman's DNA, is just a partial skull. Like, who the heck Skull that is?
Yeah, maybe that would have been like Man of Steel 2 or something, because
right.
That's what we were saying. We're like, okay, that's definitely a skull. Like, let's figure this out a little bit better and see what's going on with this. Now, I definitely think that there were some things that Snyder had planned for this movie that he decided not to do because they used them in the theatrical cut. Like, I'm really curious about certain edits or beats that were present in the theatrical that really felt like Snyder. But I just kind of feel like maybe he's just trying to do things to be different than what was in theater. because he really wants to separate his work from what they did.
You know what surprised me, like I really thought it was a Snyder scene, was the beginning of the theatrical with that criminal and Batman sitting on that ledge. I mean, it totally makes sense why that was taken out, or why it wasn't Snyder. But I don't know. I kind of like that scene. I like seeing Batman in Gotham, sitting on a ledge, taking down a criminal. Because we're not going to get that Affleck Batman movie that we so really deserve, and we really should get. But I like that scene. But it's what it is.
Yeah, half that scene was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like them taking it out, I totally it not being in the Snyder Cut. I totally understand.
Well, yeah, he said he was not going to use anything that he did not shoot.
Right.
But the Everybody Knows song, it feels like something Zack would have done, being the Leonard Cohen fan that he is. But because they went ahead and used that in the theatrical, I don't know. It's just could be me speculating. I just feel like he was maybe
it was it was a very reminiscent opening of Watchmen. So
yeah, that's why it felt so much like Zack.
I mean, he was probably definitely trying to separate himself from the theatrical release as much as possible.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure he had multiple takes that he could use that were not in the theatrical cut.
Mm-hmm.
So when Junia and I watched it, Junia had a great so we watched probably the first scene in the movie that probably just makes you go, this is amazing, is the Wonder Woman scene.
Yeah.
And, we have a little bit more of the terrorists going in, and we find out, they're terrorists, and, they say they have no demands or nothing. They're just there to basically mass kill people to make a point, and I wrote in my notes, the terrorists equal death, and, the hope of the world is dead. That's kind of part of the point of the film is the world is hopeless. And Junia and I are watching the scene of Wonder Woman fighting, and Junia, do you want to just comment here what you were saying?
I mean, I was basically saying that you could tell that it was Snyder because of the sheer fact that there were no butt shots of Wonder Woman, basically, and how from a female perspective, even a female empowerment perspective, it was really kind of a relief to see that. Because I think it's a real shame when we over-sexualize, these powerful female characters. I've hated to see that with Wonder Woman. And, I mean, they've been trying to toe the line with her as much as they possibly can, I think. But I feel like Zack definitely took it to that next level where he respected the woman,
Absolutely. I actually noticed just my first time around watching it, I was like, there's not going to be any of those low angle butt shots, and so I was waiting for him to see, and yeah, they never showed up. It's like you knew those were reshot, especially some of the scenes they were like Cyborg and Diana talking on the street.
Yeah.
And her some of her action scenes, they just take that low angle just to get right up underneath the back of her skirt.
Yep.
Yeah. They did that in the theatrical cut, and those weren't in here. And I knew they weren't going to be in here, and I definitely made sure to see that they weren't, to check if they were not going to be in here. And I was happy to see that they weren't. They did her. Zack Snyder does Wonder Woman very, very well. Her action, her the emotion, the way she cares about people. She was. I can't believe they cut out some of her blocking bullets with her bracers, except for the one scene.
Right.
because she did it 2 other times in that fight sequence, and it was in real time. You know, it wasn't the slowed down, the one that they left in the theatrical version. And she flew out of the building so high and threw that briefcase way up in the air. She was brutal. And the Wonder Woman that I know from the comics, if women and children and innocent people are about to be blown up by terrorists and then shot down because the plan didn't work, like, they're not walking out of there.
Yep.
If breathing by the time she's done.
Absolutely.
What I loved was she went from, like, in the blink of an eye, she did, like, her bracelet attack, took out the terrorists, and was fighting, and then just turns to the kids and looks at them like, are you guys, like, are you okay? She gets down and talks to the one girl, you know, like, with just, she
calls her princess. That was fantastic.
It was amazing.
She brought them comfort. And, like, you know, it's also putting back in perspective that Wonder Woman yet has not really come out of the shadows. You know, like, if we think about, you know, in BVS, like, she had been hiding, she came out to fight Doomsday, and she's starting, you know, back. But I don't really think she's, like, known, like, as Superman was.
Right.
So,
I mean, this is the Wonder Woman that I wanted to see again in Wonder Woman 84. You know, this total badass, but after all the fighting's done, just turns to the kids and is like, "You okay? You doing okay?" And the most powerful scene for me in here is when she talks to that girl and she's like, "You know, you okay, princess?" And the girl goes to her and says, "I want to be like you." And she looks at her and says, "You can be whatever you want to be." And that made me think how, you know, I don't know if this girl was really a princess or not, or she just called her princess. I think she probably was a princess, and that's why the terrorists were there. I'm not sure. But Diana being a princess, like, everybody told her what she had to be and how she had to act and what she had to grow to be as an Amazon and as the princess of the Amazons. And for her to tell that girl that she can be whatever she wants to be is also like telling herself, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, and that's what I feel girls need, man. I mean, they, you know, like, we need badass women. We need role models for young girls and women in general. Like, why women need to be able to be badasses and not just like, I'm gonna beat you with kindness. Like, come on, like, let her be a badass. And Zack does her so well. And yeah.
It really made me, as a female watching it made me emotional to see that scene. Seriously. Just in the thought process of, now I have a, you know, badass female character that not only can I look up to, but my daughter can look up to. You know,
yeah, but who does our daughter choose to look up to?
The Flash and, well, Darkseid.
Darkseid.
Yeah.
I literally saw Selah sitting out back today, sitting there, like sitting weird. I was like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I'm posing like Darkseid on the throne."
Yep.
And she took my dad's little ice scraper thing out of the truck and was spinning around, hitting the ground the way Darkseid did. And I'm like, seriously, Selah? Like,
that's the character she chooses.
That's the character that you're like. She's like, yes.
Yep. That's your daughter.
Awesome. You know, I'm going to say this. I saw people arguing about, how come Wonder Woman has no problem with, like, killing Steppenwolf, but wouldn't kill Maxwell Lord? And I'm like, seriously? I'm like,
because Max was redeemable.
I'm like,
right.
Max is a human who she could talk to because she saw and believed in him that he could be redeemed and come good.
Steppenwolf is a creature of chaos.
And exactly. Steppenwolf has murdered billions of life forms for thousands of years and is already just murdering people blindly. He's serving basically the devil, you know?
Yep.
And I'm just like, people are ridiculous. You know, I think continuing on like with the Wonder Woman part here is when we get to the part where we have the history lesson, I looked at Junia, I said, I love that when she is reading this in the temple, she's afraid. Like, you can see the fear on her face. And if you think about how she fought Doomsday fearlessly, she had fear reading the story about Darkseid.
Well, especially since the story discusses the anti-life equation.
Ah, the anti-life equation.
Yeah. Yeah, that was interesting, the anti-life equation. Carved into the planet, and like the mother boxes like revealed its existence, that it was there, and then like they could feel it on the ground under the earth. That's why they were running their fingers through it, and then they revealed it by just hitting the ground and all of the ground and the dirt and everything just exploding out of the way.
So Bryan and I were talking about this real quick before we got on.
Hey, buddy.
Bryan said, did Darkseid know that it was there? And I said, no, I don't think he did. Because if he did, I figured he would have come back to this world. But Darkseid
couldn't come back.
Was afraid to come back because that's where he was defeated and almost died. And I said, I think Steppenwolf was keeping tabs basically on this world. Because if he could, you know, take over this world, he would prove to Darkseid he's worthy to come back. That's why, you know, he invades here. And I'm just like, I feel like the anti-life equation was on this world because this was the world that fought back. You know, Steppenwolf refers to it later, like, as the world that fought back.
Yeah. Now, there was a lot of, like, there's been a lot of smack online, like, why didn't Darkseid come back? Like, in all these thousands of years, why didn't he come back? And I think, I don't know if James was in the conversation, but I know you and I talked about, Tyler, like, what is the final blow that gets Darkseid the heck off of Earth? It's Ares' axe.
Yes.
And, like, it jacked him up. And, we were saying how Darkseid had to wait for the last of the old gods to die. He needed Ares to die. He needed Superman to die. And he needed the lanterns to go away. Now, that's still my big question of how many lanterns are there? You know, where the heck are they? And that probably would have been answered in Justice League 2, which I still have faith of happening. But the old gods, they could still defeat Darkseid, and so that's why he totally had to wait.
So, I mean, out of the hundreds of millions of systems and stars and planets out in the universe, and then across the multiverse, as they discussed as Steppenwolf brought up in this movie.
Thank you.
Which was exciting.
I believe that their defeat on Earth and the loss of the mother boxes, Earth got lost in the billions of planets out there. They were fleeing for their lives because their leader Uxas basically was nearly killed, and they're fleeing for their lives, and they lost the mother boxes. They lost their largest source of their technology. It called to the stars to signal them to Earth. So, it's like their GPS. Without the mother box, Earth got lost in the stars, and they have no idea what planet the anti-life equation was on. And then I believe the betrayal that they speak of is when Uxas was severely injured, was nearly fatally injured. There were probably, on Apocalypse being the type of world it is, everybody started clamoring for the throne.
Ooh, good thinking.
Somebody was trying to, different people were trying to take the throne. I believe Steppenwolf was one of them, and when Darkseid reigned supreme once again, Steppenwolf killed everybody else who tried to take the throne to gain favor back. But he's been banished and conquering worlds in Darkseid's name. And he comes across Earth and the mother boxes and finally reveals the anti-life equation again.
Now, Junia, I know we've talked about this before, but I want to just bring this up because I don't know if you remember. The part that was exciting about when Steppenwolf admits the multiverse is Darkseid and Apocalypse exist outside the multiverse. So there might be, 52 Earths that all have a Superman, but there's only one Darkseid. So there's never like, the dark side of Earth, blah, 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 blah. There's only one. So just the idea that they acknowledge the multiverse, that's the first time the multiverse has been acknowledged, other than when Barry met Barry in Crisis. It was just kind of exciting because it just even means even more like how powerful like this Earth is and what that means to stopping Darkseid.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? Because I can't remember this, guys, in the film. Did they ever explain what the anti-life equation was?
No.
I didn't think so.
Basically, the anti-life equation is like the idea of destroying free will.
I'm just saying, like, as somebody who's viewing it who might not understand what the anti-life equation is.
I kind of wish they had said something, because like Darkseid gives that little speech about, I will rule with anti-life and with all will bow to me, and
I mean, it becomes a big focal point, for Steppenwolf, and that's the whole reason why Darkseid really wants to come to Earth anyway. So it's one of those things I wish would have been addressed a little bit more. If I have anything to complain about,
I think the only addressing to the anti-life equation and how bad it is in the history lesson. I think.
Yeah,
because they talk about the unity. But they don't talk about the anti-life equation. But like it's the way it's worded, because it talks about like there wasn't that scene of the parademon of like a man getting turned into a parademon. They just say that the worlds that the Unity take over are void of life and become his servants, becomes parademons. So I think it kind of gets a little mucky in there, about exactly where the anti-life equation comes from. If, like what James was saying, was that the only set of mother boxes they had that they lost?
Right.
Because, the anti-life equation is basically supposed to be like the way to destroy free will and complete control over basically mind, body, soul of all living things.
So I watched mostly the Steppenwolf kind of scene today when I got home, and the Darkseid talk, and basically Junia is right. Like, they don't hit on the equation completely. Mostly what they say is that it will remove free will, and it will allow Darkseid to fully take over Earth as he planned all those years ago, and like nothing could stop him. Like it would eliminate free will, and it would make everybody bow to him. That's kind of like what they really get at.
Well, and that idea, that's where Zack and them drew the inspiration for that's Final Crisis, when Darkseid has the Earth and he has the anti-life equation.
So we're kind of moving around. I think maybe we can talk characters a little bit better than trying to go beat by beat. I really liked the way Steppenwolf's voice sounded in this much more.
I like the way you talk.
It was. I like that he looked bigger And if there's anything negative I have to say about like this version of Steppenwolf, I kind of wish that maybe he had a little bit more color instead of being just like solid silver. You know, like in his armor, like it was just like one shade of silver, like from a visual.
The way his
point of
armor
view.
reflected light, though, it was a little colorful. There was some purples in there and stuff.
But, I mean, in comparison to what we had before, I mean, can we really complain?
No, exactly.
Right?
You know what I'm
Like,
saying? Exactly.
My goodness. It's like night and day.
At the same time, it's scarier and more menacing. And also, there's something to feel even just an inkling of sorrow for him being banished from his home, trying to get back there.
Absolutely. And there was one thing that Solomon said that kind of like stuck with me. Right, Ty? Do you want to tell him?
He said Steppenwolf's armor, it moves. It keeps moving just like the mother box keeps moving.
I thought that was so cool for a 6-year-old to notice. I'm like, that's sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, you're talking about the mother box and the Unity. I mean, it's interesting how they discuss that the technology for the Apocalyptan technology and the Kryptonian technology is similar, but it has different properties because it's from different worlds. And how Kryptonians, they had the world engine, require these 2 ships, and they terraform planets over time. And then the Apocalyptan technology, I mean, that's even more powerful. The Unity syncs up and the entire planet is gone.
Well, I mean, if you think about the Kryptonian technology, it's a little bit more mechanical, and the Apocalyptan technology is more, what did they say? That it was, Wonder Woman said it.
They said it was so advanced that it seemed like magic.
Yes, like sorcery.
And it seemed like like sorcery.
Yeah.
Because they called the people who like wield it, they called them mystics.
Yeah.
And it looks like Desaad is maybe one of the last mystics around, which is their scientists.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, staying with kind of we're in like the history lesson part, because I had some more points to kind of point out, was like I liked it the way to get into the that we learned this way that where they shoot the arrow is in the Temple of the Amazons, which is what calls to Diana, and that it's the arrow of Artemis, and that arrow is actually the key that lets Diana into the chamber where she learns the history lesson. And now the one part that was kind of creepy, if you look at it, is they actually have like David Thewlis's face over top of the other guy's face who's playing Ares.
Yes, they did.
And it's the original look of Ares, how he was supposed to look in Wonder Woman before they changed it all up. And I feel bad for the actor that thought he was playing Ares. Like, he was like, yeah, I'm Ares. Now, actually, you're just going to be the body. Sorry, bro. I thought it was...
I mean, him and Zeus and Artemis, all 3 of those people are jacked.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, they're all physical specimens.
James auditioned to be the body double for Zeus, but they just said, nah. And then he saw who they got and was like, I feel you, and walked out. I did think it was interesting.
No, I wasn't there yet.
Rude, Tyler, rude.
They point out that the Atlanteans, this was before they descended into the sea, and it was before the betrayal of the Amazons. So it's kind of...
That was really cool how they wrote that in there, the betrayal and enslavement of the Amazons, because that's why they escaped man's world and live on Themyscira.
Mm-hmm. So it just... Because it talks about, being the age of heroes, and how that was probably one of the last times that there was that united front, and it was maybe not long after that everything went bad.
Did you see Darkseid's voice, Ray Porter? As you see his cameo,
yes,
in the history lesson.
Yep, he is one of the guys encasing the mother box.
Yeah, one of the human men smashing the sand away after encasing the mother box.
Every time I say like the men, like the world of man, I just think of like the Lord of the Rings. It is in men we must place our faith in.
Yeah, world of men. It's just humans.
So let's see here. We have so much to talk about.
We're not going to be able to cover everything.
No, we're not. Like, I just the amount of depth that detail that's in this is ridiculous. I mean, I have like 7 pages of notes.
I mean, it's an epic movie.
This is going to have to be a 2-part talk. It probably is.
So let's jump into some characters, because I think, like I said, I think going by characters really helps.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Barry.
Or Wally.
As you know, we all understand that the problem with the Flash is it seems like every time they do a live action Flash, they want to make it an amalgam. They'll say it's Barry, but they want to bring in Wally-isms. And
because Wally is the superior Flash, so, you know.
Because everybody likes the humor that Wally brings and the more youthful energy, which I appreciate, like, for looking at the Justice League as a whole, like having Batman being the older, mature one, even though Wonder Woman technically is the oldest. And Barry's the young up-and-comer. That energy is really important to the dynamic of the team. So they just take that and run with it. And, it's still there in this, but he definitely gets more serious scenes. He definitely gets more parts that shows that he is competent and that he has a purpose. Because in the theatrical cut, there is no purpose to his character.
I mean,
other than when he ignites the mother box, other than that, he doesn't serve a purpose for anything.
I don't understand how anybody could say that it's the same Flash that we got in the theatrical. Like, I can't. Like, he had no purpose in the Whedon cut. I mean, he saves a family of 4. Okay, whatever. In this one, he turns back time. He's part of, like, everybody. They all worked as a team. Like, and Flash served his big purpose of helping, helping Victor with the mother boxes and with Superman and yada yada. He had a purpose in this. Like, he had no real purpose in the Whedon cut. He's just like, I just push people and run away. That did not happen in this movie. So it is not even close to the theatrical cut. It's a totally different interpretation.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at one of the first scenes that you have with Steppenwolf where, where are they? Tyler, help me out here. That tunnel sewer.
The bridge and tunnel?
Yeah, absolutely. So you have that scene where in the theatrical release you had Batman looking over at Flash and basically like save one. And he goes in and he runs in, saves one, and then he goes back for more after that. And it's kind of like this, I don't know, I felt like it did such a major disservice to the character because we see before that he has had moments, even in the theatrical release, they showed like little, snippets of where he had saved people before, he had done different things, but we don't give him credit for that. We still treat him like he doesn't know what the heck he's doing at all. He has the Flash suit, for God's sake, when we meet him. So to have this release the Snyder Cut here, where he's actually taken more seriously, and he's a part of, the whole plan to save these people. It's much more impactful on the character. It actually does not, make him look like he's weak or unimportant.
Yeah, like you said, he has the Flash suit. Barry's a genius. He knows what he's like. He has the suit. And he has it for a reason.
Right.
He knows what his powers can do, and I like in this that he has had experience and he's like tested some of his abilities. He knows that at that speed, like, he can tear through anything. He touched the glass, and it was like water. It rippled and shattered.
I mean, he put his
the way
hand
the
out.
street and the shoes ripped up under his feet.
Yeah.
He put his hand out.
The way he was
purpose to break the glass, so it would be less impactful. The way he broke it by doing his finger first.
He studied in this. Like, he knows what the heck he's doing. And, I mean, it's such a sad thing to see the major difference. Like, he's basically treated like a child in the theatrical release, where it's like, oh, we got to make sure that Barry's got his training wheels on. He doesn't know what the heck he's doing. And in this, it's like, he's a hero. He is a hero.
Yeah, the way the scene where he stops all the bricks from falling on everybody who just made it out of the tunnel.
Yep.
He rescues all those people. He goes back in and he tips the sword back up to Diana. I was kind of surprised that he still tripped, but it didn't. In the theatrical version, it's like he tripped because he's a bumbling idiot.
Right.
In this one, he seemed like he was somewhat amazed at what he did, and he was smiling, looking at Wonder Woman. He had his eye off of what he was doing, and that's why he tripped.
Exactly. I think that there was a moment of like awe for him, where he's like, oh my gosh, I'm a part of something. I'm doing something with other people here, and I'm in awe of this person who's also kicking butt,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which he's in awe of Wonder Woman. He was in that scene, like, he was smiling at Wonder Woman. Like, I think he was literally just like in awe of seeing her and seeing her in action and how beautiful she is. Because at the cemetery, he's like, Wonder Woman, which is, by the way, is the first time that's ever mentioned. And he's like, do you think she'd go for a younger man? She's 5,000 years old, Barry. Every man's a younger man.
Yeah.
Which is a great line.
I love that line.
That's so funny.
That was a good line.
Did anyone
and
catch...
it wasn't this overly forced humor. Like,
No.
it was just a genuine conversation between, the two rookie heroes, if you will.
It was very organic.
Yeah. Right.
We saw that you were talking about Barry being a hero. We saw him stop Captain Boomerang. It was quick, but we saw that leading up to an idea of who this Flash is.
Mm-hmm.
But did anyone catch the line when, Victor jumps to stop Steppenwolf, then Batman jumps down, and the Flash is down there and he's moving around, and he takes up the paradigm and he says, "This, what does he say? Like, this isn't a plan. Like, we're not working together or something. Like."
Yeah, he said, this isn't doing it together.
Yeah, like, he's showing, like, Barry's a team player. Like, he's not trying to be showboat. He's not trying to be the one, like, to lead the charge. Like, he's very much like, all right, I'm going to play on this team. Like, cooperative. I think we see him, what's interesting is we see him get shot in the leg, and we see how it slows him down. Okay, right there, when they're all getting back onto the Nightcrawler, which helps play out later when we see what happens.
Yeah. And then, like, the next time Barry does something, he's kickstarting the mother box.
And so Bryan made a great observation in this part, because I was trying to figure it out in one respect, because if we take a step back to BVS, when Lois drops dirt on Superman's coffin, the last shot of the film is his coffin, but we see the dirt start to come up. Okay? Now let's jump to Justice League. We see the mother box. Barry's, he's waiting to go. And Victor says no. And Barry said, go. And then he runs. And we see the mother box hit the water.
Yep.
And the picture go in. And then Barry's coming towards it. But then we see it start to come up. And, my first thought was thinking back to that Batman scene. Or, I mean, the scene in Batman vs. Superman with the coffin. But then Bryan said, before Barry runs, he talks about getting to that point that it's dangerous because time moves. And that it was actually Barry manipulating time that pulled the box up so that he could touch it right at the moment he needed to when it hit the water.
Yeah, he that was a moment that he subconsciously manipulated time. That was the
so what he says is that he when he could generate enough charge to kickstart, to wake up the mother box, if he were to run at almost the speed of light. He doesn't like doing it because things happen to time. So like the time reversal, to me, that was like, it was a foreshadow that we then get paid off in the end of the film.
Exactly. And it's subtle. Like I'm saying, like, it's subtle if you're not really thinking about it.
Because he had to build up the charge. He had to approach the speed of light, which is what he said, and then in the end, he's like, "All right, got to do it. Got to break the rule and run faster, far faster than the speed of light."
So, we have really great like little moments with Barry, like when he's talking later, he's talking to Aquaman, and he was snacking, which I love when they always show the Flash eating. And, they talk about what Cyborg is about to do. And it was a nice little character beat. Same thing with when he, from the trailer we saw where he's talking to Bruce about, we can only assume that he's won in all these other worlds. So I still want to admit that how much I love Billy Crudup and Ezra Miller as father and son.
He could totally be his father.
The first scene still is amazing, but the second scene is even better because I love the line. There's two lines that get delivered really quickly. I love the line from Henry. He says, "I taught him nothing. He knows." And then he's getting excited, and Barry says, "Calm down, Dad, before you get maced again."
I loved it.
I like that they still had the I'm a black hole of snacks. I'm a snack hole. I like that they still had that in there.
Because it seems organic, like he's just talking. And, like, the one thing is, if you think about it, Barry talks and moves because his brain is thinking so fast. Like, he's ahead. And that's, if you look at his apartment, like, it represents...
Yeah, that's why he's got so many screens on at once.
This is a good... you definitely understand this, Tyler, because that's basically you.
Yeah, Junia looked at me and when we were watching it, and how are we going to do that? And Barry goes, with the power of love. And she's like, Tyler, that's you.
Yep.
That's exactly what you would say. And I'm like...
But the screens, the multiple screens, the constantly like talking 20 billion miles per minute, like, yeah, that's you.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
I don't think Tyler and I have ever actually finished the conversation. It kind of just moves on to the next topic in a matter of milliseconds. And I'm like, oh, okay.
That's just what we call the flow of conversation.
With Tyler.
With Tyler.
like there is no with Tyler, like, if God is the alpha and Omega, or in DC Comics, Darkseid's the Omega. But anyway, Tyler is that section in the middle that's constantly just. It has no beginning. It has no end. It's just going to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. I mean, there's a conversation that we started in 2018 when we met that still hasn't ended.
It continues to grow. It's on pause.
It's him. I mean, that's just who he is. And, he's
freaking Barry Wally Allen.
I mean, I'll take it.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Anyway. Back to our show, guys.
So all that to get to, the biggest, most powerful moment for the character in the film is one that can't be undersold about the importance of this character. Like, we joked earlier, my favorite meme right now says, in the studio version of Justice League, he saves a family of 4. In this, he saves the entire world. Because we
saves
see
the universe.
He's running and he's waiting for Victor to call him in, and he gets shot in the leg or gets shot in the side by a parademon, and you think he gets hit. And he falls in. He's like, I got the wind knocked out of me. He's like freaking out, and then you look down and see this huge wound, and then he's like, I just need a minute, and he starts heal, and he's focusing, and you see him heal himself. But then, you cut back and Victor's like, it's too late. And there's a lot of edits in there, and you see the explosion of the mother boxes from the Unity, and Barry just stops, puts his hand up and basically enters the Speed Force. And like you said, he says, gotta break that rule. And he just starts running. And he's talking out loud. He's talking to his dad, and as you see him running, it's reversing time as it's fixing the work, everything behind him.
And we say because we know from the comics, enter the Speed Force and everything. But I feel the way that they probably discussed it was because Zack would have talked about the more real world aspect of it. We say he entered the Speed Force, but it's his perception is so fast that in that whatever smallest increment of a second, he just all through his head, in his head, that's it. Made this decision and just went so fast. We see it in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
But it's him and the way he responded to what happened. It just happened. He knew how fast it happened, and he was able to percept and move faster and start to go back in time before he was obliterated.
And I love how he's like, Dad, I just want you to know that your son was one of them, one of the best. And, he does it, and he pulls, and he runs. It's neat because then he runs and, reverses everything and connects with Victor and everything he's supposed to. And it's just an awesome scene. It is extremely powerful. And I thought of this, and I kind of felt funny. I had never thought of this before, and I threw it out there. We find out that Barry just got a job in a crime lab. His first job in a crime lab. So here's my question. This Flash's origins never really explored. How did he get struck by lightning? It's always he worked in the crime lab, he was hit by lightning into chemicals, even with the particle accelerator. So it makes me more excited for what they could do for the Flash movie.
I can't believe we didn't even notice that. And it's probably because in the theatrical we were just man, this ain't the Flash, man. This ain't the Flash we know. This guy's pathetic. And then we're just so excited for the Snyder Cut, and we're oh man, this Flash is really great so far. And we didn't think about it.
And then even subtly, like him running at the end, like he does like almost like a swim, kind of like hands back, like he's just enjoying, he's at peace. It wasn't that awkward running that he did at the theatrical, like the feety running.
Yeah. It's kind of like the running like that was part of when he was running back in time, like he was throwing his hands out forward to even just like throw himself that much more forward every time he, took a step.
Mm-hmm. So next character, who do we think? Let's go with Uncle Jason. So Arthur. Arthur is fun in this movie because he's a little bit more, I want to say rough, like a little, and then like you get moments of his softer side.
He's a bit of the voice of reason in this movie.
He is.
Like when he's saying, "Don't resurrect Superman." Nope, don't do it. And I thought that was interesting because you would never really think that Aquaman would be the voice of reason.
No, you don't think that Jason Momoa would be the voice of reason. Aquaman,
I don't think you're the
very well could be the voice of reason. So it's nice to kind of see that as something new for Jason Momoa.
For whatever reason, like this, more so than the theatrical version, kind of reminded me of like Thrones of Atlantis style Aquaman. Like the beginning and just like his characterization in the beginning of Thrones of Atlantis. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, like this seems like a point like after he found out his mother was sacrificed to the trench where he started to distance himself from anything Atlantean. So, he just does what he does, helping people, taking fish to the village, helping the guy who's getting shipwrecked in the storm. And I like that they didn't use that as, oh yeah, let's throw in a line where you can't see a guy's face talking about it and a little bit of green blood to get Aquaman to go down into the water someplace.
Yeah, kind of alluding to the parademon attack. Yeah. Because he even says he didn't judge the storm, or said next time
respect the
Tell
storm.
him to respect the storm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I was explaining to Solomon as we were watching it, I'm like, buddy, you got to look. Everyone there is wearing coats and sweaters, and this guy comes in soaking wet from the water, just wearing a tank top.
Yep.
I'm like, it just shows his Atlantean skin, like he
it doesn't
takes
faze
the
him.
cold. It doesn't faze him. It doesn't bother him.
His body's made for the chilly depths.
Speaking of sweaters, that chick that sniffed his sweater, he knocked her up.
My mom watched that part, and she immediately after was like, can't say I wouldn't do the same thing.
That's probably why he goes back to that village every winter.
See, that's what I said. That's what I said to Tyler. Like, and Peter's David's Aquaman, which looks very close to Momoa's Aquaman. In his early days, Aquaman is kind of like in the Arctic around Alaska and stuff. And he meets an Eskimo lady, and he sleeps with her, because he's Aquaman. He's kind of a man whore, and Peter David's Aquaman. And he gets her pregnant. And like 18 years later, all of a sudden he finds out he has a son named Korvac. And he takes that son to Atlantis and kind of shows him things going on. And I just thought that was an interesting scene. Like, I mean, all the women are singing, maybe he slept with them all. But there's that one chick sniffing his sweater, like when's he going to come back? He smells beautiful, or maybe he smells like alcohol. I don't know. But it seemed like there was an emotional attachment there. And I'm going to go with that she's pregnant.
I mean, there's probably an emotional attachment there, even just for the sheer fact that he comes to save the village, and bringing them food. That's just, me putting my, 2 cents in there.
He's
But
like
I can see that
dude
too.
who comes out of the water, you know what I mean? Like,
you'd be sniffing his sweater too, Bryan.
yeah, that's the point here.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would.
I really like.
Does it have his DNA on it? Can I sell it? Like,
I like that we don't get that shot of him like jumping backwards into the water. He almost pulls a Batman on Batman. Like he goes out in the water, then just disappears.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how he disappears and it's just a ripple. It's not a splash and it's not a through the water. He literally disappears into the water with a ripple.
I love it. I thought it was so much more, just tasteful,
It made it more mysterious and mythical.
Yeah.
And then, we see that he goes down to that, I guess it's like a temple or monument of Queen of Atlan, and then Volko shows up and says, "You come here often," and he says, "I like it because it's peaceful." And
I think it's just like an ancient ruins.
Yeah, because it's Volko that makes the thing about the watchtower, where the mother box is kept, and then, Volko gives him the speech of pick up your mother's trident, and he's got the armor there with him. And a much different looking Volko as far as like he's wearing armor and his hair is down compared to like the slick back that we see in Aquaman. It was nice to see Volko. See good old Willem.
Yeah, it's good to see Willem Dafoe.
And we see Arthur just do that, like he just steps back, rejects Volko. He calls Atlanteans superstitious people.
Blowhards, is that what he calls them?
Yeah. And you get to really see more of how his perception on Atlantis.
I like how he said when he talks about the surface world, he says, "They don't call me king up there."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's like, "They don't call me king of the land." So I like how with Aquaman, with Flash, they give us just a little bit of who they are and what they are to allow their solo movies, those stories to be told. They're not trying to tell us the complete story of these characters.
Yeah. And speaking of Aquaman and stuff, and at that point we're seeing the conversation with Volko inside the air bubble, and they're talking, and later we see Mira talking to the soldiers, and they're making like what would be like dolphin or whale noises, fish noises at each other, and like they had discussed like that English, can't be like spoke underwater, so they talk a different way, like they would underwater, and they need the air to speak English like that, and it helps to and it's for the audience, Mm-hmm. And then like we see Aquaman and they just speak underwater. It's kind of like in the comics where you get the asterisk and it says translated from whatever made-up language or real language from around the world or the multiverse, and it's still in English, so you can read it. So you can easily see that that's almost you could put that into Aquaman, and they're just, instead of even showing you, they're just talking.
Right.
It's translated from their Atlantean speak underwater.
Because that is a good rationale of working, because like the only one that kind of threw me a little bit was you have the Atlantean guard who comes into the air bubble and says something to Mira, because in Aquaman the film they mentioned that only like highborns or whatever can speak the air, but we don't know enough about that to even say that guard maybe wasn't highborn or whatever. The only thing that contradicts is the fact that Mira states that her parents, plural, died.
Yeah, when her fathers and...
and then Aquaman, of course, we meet her father. But, that's minor. things with how.
Yeah, so not any real contradiction there, and when Justice League was shot, the Aquaman wasn't in production yet. They invented new technology to work with Aquaman to do the things that they did in Aquaman. So that technology didn't even exist when they filmed Justice League just a couple of years earlier.
Yeah, I mean, we know that Wan and Snyder had conversations, but once again, this is Snyder putting in what he wanted, not really caring how it fits into the rest of everything else that's come after. So we get the great scene of Arthur showing up and, saving Mira, fighting Steppenwolf. And then I love the shot of when they're in the tunnel and the tunnel pops and you see Arthur in the water before he comes out. And
I love how he's just floating in the same spot with all of that water rushing by.
Yeah.
Like it has no effect on him.
And then we get the awesome shot of him swimming like on top of it to get ahead of it to, come down and stop it. I like how Arthur, everyone's just better in this. I mean, I know we could go on forever and talking about how much better it is, but we get the scene of him fighting. Later Steppenwolf, he actually fights with him. We have the awesome scene where Superman punches Steppenwolf, Arthur hits Steppenwolf. Because we see his trident, even though it's a quindent, do more. Like when he hits some parademons and stuff, like we see more out of his abilities. Like when he's fighting, just what's the line he says? It's like Wonder Woman, Cyborg, and Aquaman, and he says to Barry, he's like, "You do your thing, we got this." And you just feel them working together, and you have that great scene of Arthur walking in with Cyborg, and they're like round two, and they're getting, Steppenwolf's attention.
Yeah, and he calls Steppenwolf, he's, remember me? Remember him from the fight in Atlantis at the Mother Box, which was really sweet when Mira was pulling the water and then the blood out of Steppenwolf.
Oh, that was so cool.
Yeah. Junia got excited about that part. She's like, oh, look what she's doing. And let's just take a pause here and talk about Mira for a second. A little bit more of a different interpretation. I don't feel like she was sexualized as much. She was a little bit more hard, but how about that accent? What do you guys think? Talk amongst yourselves.
Oh, I don't listen to women when they talk.
Oh, you're funny.
I didn't notice.
No, I don't know. It wasn't very strong, so it didn't bug me the way I've seen people say it has. It wasn't a very strong accent. It was more just kind of like he tried to have her act a little more regal. Like somebody from royalty might.
I didn't even notice it until the end. I'm not even going to lie. The epilogue. Like, that's really when I noticed the accent.
And I think there's a reason. Okay, I don't want to jump ahead, but I really feel like the epilogue nightmare scene, every bit of that footage was new. The only ones that I kind of wasn't sure was the Mira, Cyborg, and Flash. But I really think
it was all.
I think all of it was completely new. And I think that could be why it really.
Well, most of those people too, they never shot together because when they filmed that, it was still in the height of the pandemic. So nobody actually shot together. All those shots are everybody like being directed by Zack to act like everybody else is around them.
The only ones I saw really together was Ben as Batman and Joe Manganiello. Did you guys watch the 30-minute little documentary that's now available?
Oh, it's now available. Last time I looked, it wasn't.
It's on your digital copy, and I think it's only through Apple though, maybe, of BVS. Because I watched it, and it was showing Zack filming Batman and Manganiello, and then it cuts and you see Leto, but there was a shot of the two of them together. So that's when I was like, okay. And then we learned that the Superman part in the Nightmare is actually repurposed footage from BVS.
Yeah, when he comes through the ceiling to save Lois, and when he looks up, they just lit up his eyes.
So that's when I was like, okay, so I don't think any of this is original. I think all this is new. So that could be explained why we have Mira in her lovely accent.
You know, what's interesting when we bring that up, the Nightmare timeline, in BVS, Batman has the Joker card on his gun, and we find out from this that it's from the truce that they make. Mm-hmm. During with what they have to do. Well, in the Nightmare scene that Cyborg has in the ship, there's added stuff to that scene, especially over the Hall of Justice, and the Joker card that's flying is torn in half. So at some point that truce ends.
Yeah. And I was wondering was it ended by Batman, or not, because I feel like it wasn't. Because if you think about the card being strapped to his gun, and then in that Nightmare we see him in BVS ends with him being taken prisoner. And what I think is interesting,
pretty much being killed, and then in that scene, Superman's got the cowl in his hand.
What I think is interesting is in the Nightmare scene, Superman's back in the blue costume, and this ends with him in the black costume. Just think that's interesting, but we'll get there. So Arthur, I think the last really great thing with Arthur, big is he gets to spear Steppenwolf. And we had been teased this image before, but he, shoves his Quindent through Steppenwolf and lifts him up, very Vlad the Impaler like. It's pretty awesome.
It was.
All right, Junia, you pick. Which character we discuss next?
Let's do Batman.
All right. Bruce, our kind of lead as he's navigating this film. I loved Batman even more in this movie because, this was Batman. This was Bruce coming back to humanity. We got more Bruce and Alfred. We got Bruce as an optimist.
He's got a great arc through BVS into Justice League through the two movies.
We see him at the beginning, and we get that the scene where he meets Arthur, and I love that. Very very Bruce Wayne like he shows he can speak Icelandic also. He's just kind of playing dumb as they're talking in their language. He's like, as if he doesn't know what they're saying. I loved it.
And then he just pulls out $25,000 and gives it to the village.
I mean, I love that Arthur takes it and then hands it to the kid to give to the village.
Did he take it? I thought Bruce held it out, and then when he lowered him down to the ground, the kid just ran by and took it.
Okay, then I just looked at it wrong. I thought Arthur had it in his hand and the kid took it. No. But, we see Bruce on the helicopter with Alfred talking about how they found him. We'll see what happens, I like the idea that Bruce is trying. He's trying to find these people. He's trying to bring a team together. He knows that something's coming. Because Alfred even says, it's been a little bit of time, since Luthor's warning. Nothing's happened. And...
Well, Bruce has he's went from a lost man with no faith in people, no hope for humanity, no hope that people can change, that, he became cruel. Like, Alfred said it best. I mean, that line summed up the whole Batman arc there, in Batman vs. Superman. Now Bruce is a man of faith. He's having faith in people. He's believing that people can get better, that, he's realizing the things that he has to do now. He has to put this team together. There's bigger things than Gotham,
Mm-hmm.
as I've watched the Snyder Cut a few times now, going back and forth this evening, if you go back to the very beginning of the Snyder Cut, when Superman dies, they show Batman there, and maybe I'm just crazy or maybe it's wishful thinking, but they do the close-up of Batman's face, and you almost see him, like, he kind of almost looks teary-eyed, like when Superman dies. You have to go back to, like, really the very, very beginning. But you see this whole change in the man, and that's why Batman's arc is just awesome, and I just love Affleck's Batman so much.
I like Affleck's Batman so much. Jeremy Irons as Alfred, possibly even more than Ben Affleck's Batman. You have him asking about Luthor's warning, and they know Bruce is looking. He's looking for this. He's trying to put the team together, and he's looking for this threat. He's looking, but the places that get hit, the world is divided, like he says. Nobody works together, and he hits Themyscira and collects a mother box. Nobody knows. Nobody in the world knows except for Diana, because they signal her. Atlantis, the only person who knows that they may have had contact with Arthur. Like, he would never know if he had no contact with Arthur.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking, but this all happens, like, right under his nose, and it would be all over if he didn't try, if he didn't make these alliances. Like he's the driving force, and even just through him, and through all the characters, him and Barry, and Diana, like, even though we only get Superman in the last hour and 45 minutes of the movie, he's felt throughout the entire film.
I mean, Barry has the great line about, Barry's the one that says about, oh man, I'm missing Superman right now. And then he even makes the line about Superman was his hero when they're digging up Clark's body. And
yeah, Batman has a really good arc. And by the end of this, he doesn't even seem fazed when a green Martian is speaking to him.
So let's talk about that scene real quick here, since you brought it up. The scene description is like in this, when they originally were pitching it, was supposed to be Green Lantern. Like, it was supposed to be, I originally read like Kilowog and Tama Ray, and it was going to help lead into Earth's.
That would have been nice.
When do you guys think that was filmed? Because Ben looks very, like, thin and different in that scene. Do you think that was part of the additional photography?
You mean with Martian Manhunter?
Yeah.
I feel like it is. Ben for a while there he was losing weight for a role. So he was getting really thin. But considering how Ben Affleck had looked over the last few years, on and off, even though he's looking thinner, he's looking healthier.
Yeah, because I mean, when they did the Justice League reshoots, he looked bloated. Because that's when he was like in the thralls of his alcoholism, and you can see it on him. And yeah, he just looks really thin there. That's why I was like, I wonder when it was filmed. But it was a good scene. Like, you know, it definitely sets up for a sequel, you know, of like Martian Manhunter being more active. Like, because we got two scenes. We got that scene, and then we got the scene where he poses as Martha and goes to Lois. And that was a really great scene. And it's kind of sad in one respect that it really wasn't Martha that was connecting with Lois.
See, everything, yeah, I mean, it was shot before, and it was probably perhaps intended to be Martha when it was shot, but then he had the idea to change it. But the way the lines that were delivered, and since it is Martian Manhunter, I mean, the lines that were delivered, he had to know, like, what was going on with Martha and what was going on in her head. Like, he had to have used some telepathy to get an insight into her to be able to convince Lois, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. So let's talk about Martha and Lois real quick. They're not in the film that much. We got the scene of, you know, Martha at the gravestone and driving off, and then we don't see her again until, you know, Clark shows up, and it's a much... I told Junia, I was like, I wonder what Lois said on the phone to get Martha to come. Like, did she say, hey, your son's back, or come to the farm quickly? Like, because when she pulls up, like, I'm like, man, like, how would you be as a parent? Like, hey, your son's back from the dead. Hurry up and get over here.
I don't think you could really say it over the phone personally. Like, no, I feel like it would have to be like, hey, I need you to come here, like, right now. Because otherwise, I mean, I don't know. She looked confused when she first walked up, and then it, like, dawned on her, you know?
Well, it probably made news pretty quick that something happened again at Memorial Park.
You mean
not that we saw any of it, but, you know, I assume that would probably make the news pretty quick. Martha would have at least an idea when she heard something from Lois. She's like, oh, I'm on my way.
I don't know. I mean, it just kind of depends on the situation. Of course, you know, it being in the middle of, like, a big, you know, city like that, obviously it would probably get some kind of, you know, noticing. But at the same time, you think about the government and it being, you know, one of those situations they might not want to have out there, you know, for the public to see. I don't know. Just thinking.
I want to throw out there that Superman only fights in that park. I mean, that's where he fought Zod. That's where it started, you know, his battle against Zod. And that's where he fought Doomsday. That's where it started. And then that's where it started when he fought the Justice League. So just don't meet Superman in the park. That's where he likes to fight. But, I mean, I love how he, like... the scene where he's holding Lois and his mom, like... And then, like, his next line is basically like, I have to find out why they brought me back. Like, is strong. Lois in this is much better because, you know, they trash the character in the theatrical cut. I like that we get the scene of her bringing coffee. We see her in the coffee shop. And we find out that's like her daily routine in the morning. So it really sets up why she's near the park when Clark returns. I like that we see her with Superman's cape. We see her holding it. Junia said to me, like, if that was her, that would be her blanket. She would be wrapped up in it. And then, of course...
well, you saw the big old hole in it. I think it's the whole suit, and it's just got the big old hole in it.
Yeah. I wonder if it was the whole suit, but we definitely saw the red, so I was like, oh, the cape. And then we get Bryan's part that he's excited for is we see Lois with a pregnancy test. And I guess, that's part of where I started thinking about this whole timeline thing. She has a pregnancy test. She's supposed to be pregnant. It's Clark's. And then I'm like, well...
From the bathtub scene.
Yeah. I mean, it makes the most sense, right?
Yep.
So he couldn't have been dead but a couple of months for her to not
At most, yeah.
For her not to be showing. And the fact that when he's buried, it's like fall in Kansas, and then it still feels like fall when they're back in Kansas at the end when they're moving back into the house. And that scene, I love that I Bought the Bank is still in there. So that really kind of helped me think, okay, timeline wise, how long was Superman gone? And that's where I'm kind of like, Bryan and I were like, maybe 90 days, 3 months, 4 months maybe. Playing with the weather and the pregnancy as a timeline. Thoughts you're thinking, Junia? You're over there in deep thoughts.
I mean, I don't know. For her to take a pregnancy test, it would probably have to at least be 4 weeks after. I would say, most likely for her to feel like she needed to. But I don't know if I would say as much as 4 months, personally. There would be some more obvious changes for her.
Oh yeah, she'd be well along.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, gosh, think about me at 4 months pregnant. I mean, right, Ty?
I just want to throw this out there because it's just happened. And yes, something about you pregnant at 4 months. That's why I'm like, oh yeah. Playing with the timeline. I mean.
See, now you got Tyler daydreaming.
I know, right?
So I sent this tweet out. Okay, I said, hey, at Ray Porter, it's crazy how much my 4-year-old daughter loves your dark side. She was sitting on the porch in the throne pose. Then she took an ice scraper, and it was her weapon, and she struck the ground. She wants to be called Dark Side. You definitely made her an impression. He just responded and said, oh no, send her my regards.
That's awesome.
So Darkseid just acknowledged my daughter's existence.
Send her my regards.
That's fantastic.
Can't wait to tell her in the morning. That just happened live on the podcast.
Awesome.
That's hilarious.
But anyways, so I mean that's kind of Lois's story. I like, when she took Clark back to the house, and that was basically her. Like, she was very minimal but very effective in where she was in the story.
I personally like Amy Adams. I will never be a fan of her as Lois Lane, but as far as comparison goes from, the Justice League to this, this is definitely an improvement.
She's no Kate Bosworth bad, but...
She's not that much better.
So, now we're going to talk about my favorite character. He has the best line. Ryan Choi. You're looking at the hottest thing on earth. That's also what I said to my prom date. She dumped me anyways. It's crazy to think about his character was completely void in God. And I mean, that is it boggles my mind. But I loved his addition. That's the second Adam. We get, we see him and Silas working at Star Labs together. We get the line about him being the head of nanotechnology. I'm really glad he was there. It just pads out that world. And it's just another nod to a DC character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. I'm sorry, I'm getting kind of excited to talk about, Silas and everything.
That's where I was going. I just wanted to throw in the right.
I know.
Silas, Cyborg, and...
Yep.
First of all, Joe Morton. I mean, inspired casting. We said that from the beginning. The man who's known mostly as creating Skynet, is the father of Cyborg. But this, oh my gosh, just from their dynamic is so good together. Silas was definitely a more well-rounded character. He had an arc. I mean, from the point of when he gives Victor the tape recorder, and it starts off where he says, if you can't stand to look at me, maybe you can hear me. And the first part is, he says all these things, and he says, I'm speaking to you as a scientist. Now let me speak to you as a father. And, Victor crushes it. And we get to see scenes of Silas, like the scene where he's in the hospital, when it cuts and it says, they tell him that his wife died. And then your son's dying. And
Victor will too.
And he's standing over him crying like, I'm not going to let you die. I will not let you die.
You connect with the character so much more in that moment. I mean, if you are a parent especially, like you can just sit back and think to yourself, like, there is major empathy for that character at that point. You definitely feel like, yeah, that might be something that if I were in that crazy situation, I may do, or if I had the ability to, I might.
I mean, if we jump ahead to when Cyborg talks about his history with the Mother Box, and he says the Star Labs technician, and he's telling the story about he recognized it was alien. He put the pieces together, and in desperation, he saved my life. He's like, that technician was my father.
Yep.
Like, even though Victor is angry at his father, there's a respect and reverence he has. Because, like, when Silas is taken, and he tries to, Silas steps up and tries to talk to Steppenwolf to get him to leave that one guy alone, causes Victor to attack. And then he says to Victor, I didn't think he would come. And Victor says, you're my father.
Yeah. The relationship is beautiful. Like, you understand the frustration that Victor has towards Silas. You understand, or you understand better in this version, Silas's motivations. And, I don't mean to jump ahead so much here and stop me if I'm talking too quickly, but, going to the whole fact that it ends with Silas dying. Like, it was a beautiful ending. And I really think that was much needed for the character and the character arc.
Silas, Victor didn't get to really apologize and make up with his father. But in that moment, Silas looking at his son, and he sacrifices himself, knowing that Steppenwolf's going to get the Mother Box. But by doing what he's doing, Victor will be able to figure out and track the Mother Box.
I think in all reality, it wasn't Victor's place to apologize. Victor definitely had a reason to be angry. Mm-hmm. At this point, it was Silas saying, this is my penance. This is what I will give of myself in order to, make things right again, if I must.
Well, we get the second half of his speech to Victor on the tape recorder in the epilogue when Victor reconstitutes the recorder and everything. And we get to hear him talk to Victor and say things that he's probably never said to Victor. We get a lot of that in different stories where it's even more contentious between them. But, words he's never said to him, proud of who he is and who he's become and who he is yet to become. And, that was really, that really hit really hard. It was very emotional. Yeah. And he was able to narrate that and be there for the end. The first half of his thing where he was talking about, and they were showing the origin story of Cyborg, he was narrating things, and it was showing Victor doing different things up on the roof, learning to fly, flying through the sky. He was in the mechanical world, which he's got his human body, his human self in there, which is pretty cool. Talking about the nukes, which we get to see the missiles that we saw in the trailer. The way he talks about financials, the banks, the bear, and that fighting, and he just brushes that aside.
In the world of ones and zeros, you are the absolute.
Yeah.
I love when he just watches the lady, the worker.
Yeah, and the waitress, the single mother. Yeah.
He watches her. He sees her bank account, how much she has, what he watches her at the birthday, all this footage that's being recorded, and then he just increases her bank account for her, and then he's there when she's at the ATM and gets to witness.
Yeah, it was a beautiful origin story too.
Victor, Cyborg and the Flash, the two characters that benefit the most from this film. And I liked Cyborg in the theatrical cut, and I went into that movie not really caring about Cyborg. But in this, I liked him even more. I felt his depth. I felt his pains,
So much better. And, throughout the movie, he's angry and he doesn't know what he's there for, who he is, and everything he can do. What does that mean for him? But by the end, he's accepted, I'm not broken and I'm not alone. He's smiling at his father's grave when he takes off his clothes and he takes off his hoodie and he flies off. He comes back from seeing himself as a monster and blaming his father to full acceptance of that.
One of my favorite little moments is we were talking about Silas, where Silas is like, no, why are we being shut down? And then he sees Victor come walking in with the rest of the team.
Yeah.
And he just looks, and Victor kind of gives him the look, and he, acknowledges Victor. And then he's like, I was wrong. Shut everything down until I say so. Just the fact that, no questions asked.
He's got his kids back.
He supports his son. All right, Victor, you're doing something important. Okay. Can I also just point out how much I loved Victor's mom, Dr. Stone? I hate that she was cut, because I love the scene where we're introduced and, she's talking to the dean of the college, and Victor hacked into our system and changed her grades. And the guy's like, Mrs. Stone, and she just cuts him off like, Dr. Stone. And she's like, Victor has a good heart. He's just trying to help. And he's, the girl he references, I guess a girl that Victor loves in the comics, she's like, her father just died?
her family lost their house.
Yeah. And it's like, how do you expect her to pass her classes? Victor did what he thought was right because he has a heart. What did you do to help her? So immediately, she's not just defending her son. She's showing the school their lack of caring for their students.
Yeah.
And, we have that great scene of her, like after the football game, we see her cheering on Victor, but just her and Victor talking in the car. And, her final words is, I can't wait to see what you'll do tomorrow. And one thing that happens quickly, and my kids saw it too, is what's the first thing Victor does when he notices the car's coming? He throws his arm out to put around his mom. And that's the arm that he loses. Like when you see him in the hospital bed, that's the arm that's completely gone.
All the way up to the shoulder.
He went to protect his mom first. So we just get a much
the movie just, it gives every character and every scene that they're in, it just gives it all a chance to breathe. You know what I mean? Like it's very impactful, and then it lets you bask in that before it moves on. Like it doesn't pull you all over the place and give you whiplash.
Mm-hmm.
It breathes. So let's move on. We've covered, we've hit Batman, Bruce. Like we've kind of moved all over. Like we got the great lines from him and Alfred, like the Alfred faith. Like I'm not acting on logic for a change. Like I'm operating on faith.
And this is Alfred. I work for him.
Yeah, this is a much more humbled Bruce, and like you see that humanity has returned to him.
Can I say one thing? I absolutely love, one of my favorite parts with Alfred was the exchange between him and Wonder Woman when she's like, when Diana's sitting there trying to make tea, and he comes over and he's like, yeah, you want to make sure that you put the hot water in first. That way we don't scald the tea. And like, he's being the butler even when she's trying to make it herself. I thought it was so funny and cute.
It's cute.
It was a good moment.
He can't stand to see people do it and do it wrong.
Right.
I'll do it for you.
Yep.
That and I took it as kind of like that British butler and tea.
Yes.
The way that we are told that they, that they take the tea very seriously.
Yes. Exactly.
That's what came to my mind during that scene.
It was super cute though, and he was also trying not to step on her toes, and he's trying to be a gentleman, but he's like, no, this is no.
and then in that same scene, he's testing the bracers that he invented.
Yeah.
That Bruce got the idea from Wonder Woman's gauntlets, and they don't spell it out for you, but in that interaction, you can see from Diana's point of view that she's like, oh, I wonder where he got that idea from. Like a sarcastic way, like, yeah, like he we know where that comes from.
Right.
I thought that was cool because it explained why Batman had this extra armor thing on that they never really okay, that just looks cool, but it had a purpose.
Why they blocked parademon blasts and heat vision.
Yeah. So when it does it later, you're like, yes, because of the gauntlets. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Alfred. You're a genius.
Celebrate later, Alfred.
The one thing I we got that nice shot at the end of Batman. So instead of the shot of him on the rooftop looking up at the bat signal, we got him standing on the tank. And I was just thinking to myself, where is this tank? It looks like a massive tank. And, I didn't notice the first time I watched it there were people, tied up at the bottom.
No, I didn't see it the first time. I saw it the second time, and then on somebody's apparent close-up, like they blew up that image of the people tied up. They look like they're mutants, like they're wearing the red visors, the red glasses type stuff that the mutant gang wears in The Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just kind of like, okay, this is cool. I like Batman, you know, it's just a much better character and just leader in this. And
what I love is, even though he's supposed to be like, you know, the main character here, the focal point, in his role, it's kind of like echoed throughout the movie, where even though he's a main character, he is not the highlight. He is still, in a sense, a background figure, if you will. Like, he's about the team. He's not about being in the spotlight. I don't know, just it's kind of cool.
You're right. I mean, he knows that he can't do this. It has to be done. And he's not strong enough, and he has to get people that are stronger.
And the directing echoes that. Like, it doesn't overindulge in Batman and Batman like highlighted scenes or highlighted action points. Like, there's that sprinkled in, yes, but we highlight all of these other characters as well.
Well,
you know
we
what I
don't
mean?
even get Batman. We don't even get Batman in suit until the gargoyle scene.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, you know, an hour or something into the movie.
Wow. Yeah.
Almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
Because I know right after the bridge tunnel harbor scene is like 2 hours, I think. So our last main character to kind of talk about, so that we don't talk forever, is pretty much Superman. And
we've already talked about how he was, you know, there the whole time while he wasn't on screen. So now we get to talk about all his stuff on screen.
Yep. So his return is pretty much the same as far as footage-wise. We get a couple extra really cool shots of him, like after he fights the Flash, like with the heat vision where he's about to shoot the Flash. We have a great scene of him walking, and the Flash is speeding towards him, and he just steps out of the way and pushes the Flash into Aquaman and takes both of them out like that. I love that scene because Batman just shows up, and he's just walking towards Batman. And, you know, this is where we get the heat vision, and Batman uses the gauntlets to try to absorb the heat vision. And then, you know, Lois shows up and stops it in a much more natural, normal way. We don't have the stupid "Do you bleed?" line.
Oh, thank God.
Thank God.
Or the "something's definitely bleeding" line.
Yeah.
Yeah, Batman doesn't joke. One of my friends said that. Justin said that recently. He's like, I don't get it. He's like, I don't understand, you know, this theatrical release of Justice League where Batman's sitting around joking. He's like, he doesn't do that crap. That's not Batman.
Batman Bruce.
Yeah. No, the humor that Batman has, because he's not always 100% humorless. And the humor that we get from him, especially in this movie, is so natural and just organic. Nothing is forced.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't not like you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Like when he comes back from the dead, it's none of that. It's Alfred, I work for him.
Yep.
Type of humor.
Yeah.
Dry.
The more less. More or less.
Yeah.
He said no.
He said no.
We get the Superman scene where he's at the house and he's standing there looking out the window and he's like, I liked it here. he's starting to remember, and you have him looking out the window at the swing, and it's just so much more subtle. Of how Superman's like coming back, and then of course he gets the ring on Lois, and we talked about his mom coming back. Even the butterfly on his hand was a callback to Man of Steel. Think of the shot that Zack has inserted of the butterfly on the swing, flying around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, it just shows that, for everything that Superman is and he can do, and what he just did fighting the Justice League, or, fighting everybody, and he's back on the farm, and he's remembered who he is. Butterfly just flying and crawling around on his hand. Tiny little creature, nothing to fear.
It's also think about the life cycle of a butterfly, and the birth and, the death of the caterpillar, the birth of the butterfly.
Yeah, he's reborn, being brought back to life, yeah.
And then, I think about, so he goes to the ship, and I asked Junia this, because in that scene, he's walking, and there is a blue costume that comes out. And I asked Junia, I said, so why does he choose the black? It's not like, oh, this is all I have kind of thing. They didn't do like the hyper chamber like in the comics for the black costume. So he does choose the black. And in one way, black could be looked at as like a mourning, he's, but this is also Superman, he's making a stance. We have the second scene of him coming out, the first flight. And if you think about it, like, he's come back, he doesn't have to wear his Superman suit. He doesn't have to do anything as Superman. This is more of like him choosing to be Superman. Because, even in BVS, he says to Lois, like, Superman was never real. It was a farmer's dream. And then, Man of Steel, Zod kind of calls him out. So he has to reveal himself. This is kind of Clark choosing that he's going to be Superman. But
I think he chooses both worlds here. I think he's stepping into the person that he is truly meant to be, rather than the person where he's trying to appease the world around him. I think sometimes the red and the blue he donned for the whole purpose of trying to connect himself to America, to, the earth. The black is very Kryptonian. The black and gray is very, much so like what they would wear when they were on Krypton, and even what his father wears when he sees his father, and Zod and all of them wear the black and gray as well. So I think it's kind of cool because it's like, I'm not going to be afraid to be me. This is me. This is where I come from, and now I'm going to stand up for who I am.
And then, didn't you point out that black also absorbs more sunlight?
It does. When he flies up to the sun, I was like, like black definitely absorbs more sunlight. So if he's trying to kind of charge himself, it makes sense too,
Yeah, the shot where he flies up into space and gets the sun over the horizon, that's just a beautiful shot. That's actually the background of my phone, is that shot. And that's kind of like the only thing I see that references, the added solar absorption of the black suit, which is something we know of from the comic books, how they've explained the black suit. Mm-hmm. In the movie, they didn't explain it, but I don't think Zack went for telling you what the suit did, more or less just showing you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think it's interesting when he takes off, we hear new Jonathan Kent, like, dialogue. You know, about, because he says, "Fly, son, fly." And it got me thinking, like, wasn't there supposed to be a scene in this with Jonathan Kent? Like, I thought for sure they filmed something with Jonathan for this movie, but maybe I was wrong. It was just nice to hear, like, him again, but in dialogue we hadn't heard.
Yeah, it's nice telling him to fly this time, though.
We didn't get no run, Barry, run, but we got a fly, son, fly.
Yeah, it's time to fly. Yeah, it was really good.
And then, he shows up, and I was wondering how he was going to make his entrance, but right when Steppenwolf goes to, cut down Cyborg, he just appears and takes the axe and is like, not impressed.
Yeah. I mean, before we go any further with that real quick, can I point out how much teamwork it took for them to be able to save the world, stop the Unity? Like, before Superman arrived, it was everybody was down and Cyborg was about to get chopped down.
Oh, yeah.
Superman arrives and he's able to stop Steppenwolf. So without Superman, like, the plan is over. The plan ends. But then, you need Victor to go inside the synchronized, go inside the Unity, go inside the mother boxes, and then they need Barry to give him that charge, that push, that power to be able to get in there. Like, it was a team effort. Without one of the people there, like, they would have failed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
it was written well that it required everybody to do it.
Right.
I was telling Solomon we were watching today, I'm like, look how at the scene where Superman enters, like you said, Wonder Woman and Arthur are down. They're under rubble. Barry's running, waiting for Victor. Batman's like, he left the gun, he's coming. And it's one of those, like, Steppenwolf's about to, take out Cyborg. You're like, oh no, everything's going to fail. And then Superman shows up. And
he freeze breaths the axe and shatters
so cool.
it.
And then just kicks him like no big deal. He's like, pff.
Well, I know, right? But I loved how
charged.
subtle too the freeze breath was. He just looked at it and he just blew, just not even like we always see the super breath, the freeze breath, like a large inhale and a huge exhale.
Yeah.
Like, he just blew on it and froze it and shattered it and then delivered that giant kick.
Mm-hmm.
And I just loved, like, him punching Steppenwolf and, like, hitting him. And then, he heat visions him and knocks him back. And then just keeps beating him down. And we get the awesome shot of him over top. And he uses his heat vision and tears off his arm.
Right. Like, in the theatrical version, like, he comes in from above down into the silo and he says, "This guy's still bothering you," because he comes back from doing the little rescue thing. But in this one, like, when he starts going to town on Steppenwolf, he doesn't stop. After he puts him into the wall, he flies up and comes back down to hit him.
Yeah,
and then he keeps pounding him into the ground. I love how everything goes silent and all you hear is boom, boom, just one right after the other.
I do have to say, like, I feel like less is more when it came to the music, the soundtrack for this. I was grateful for that, and that was kind of one of those moments where it was like, it's awesome to just, like, really hear that amplified.
The score for this was impressive. Like, Junkie XL impressed me with this score. I've been listening to it for like 4 days now because the movie is 4 hours and 2 minutes with credits. The score is 3 hours and 53 minutes.
There was almost music over everything.
And it was crafted so well.
But it wasn't like always in your face. There was like a subtleness to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. It was just, I was always in the background. Like you can see, there's no movie like this, you know, it's got such this epic scale, and, I mean, you got the music, the ancient limitations over with the vocalization, before the Wonder Woman cello kicks in. Just so much that's going on, and lots of percussion, but it's not just booming in your ears the entire time. It's done very well.
I was impressed. You know, I love Superman and the team looking at Darkseid when the boom tube opens the correct way, straight. You know, we saw the great part of Superman like lifting Batman onto the top of the silo, and then we still got the chest shirt rip, but this time it was the black costume, and that was exciting. Just that it was still in there.
Yeah. One of the few scenes we didn't really talk about with Superman was the nightmare scene, the nightmare image we get of him in Cyborg's nightmare scene, where he is in the Batcave holding a dead and skeleton of Lois.
And Darkseid he's in the black costume. Darkseid comes up and puts his hand on his shoulder. And that scene is another new scene, because that image of Superman is repurposed, flipped scenes from Man of Steel, from when he kills Zod. Him on the ground is when he was in front of Lois, and then the up close is right after he kills Zod, when he's crying about before he yells. It's just flipped. So,
well, you know, he's had a pretty busy schedule, even throughout the pandemic.
I mean, I wonder if George Lucas saw this movie and was like, yes, Zach, use the technology. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I wanted Star Wars to be.
Yeah, this is what the prequels were supposed to be.
They said it couldn't be done. So the last character we'll touch on, and then we'll wrap this up, and we'll probably be bringing it, back, because there's a lot to digest, a lot to talk about. And we'll probably do a commentary next year, chapter by chapter, but we'll let Junia take over this one. Junia, why don't you tell us about the Joker?
Why don't I tell you about the Joker? Yeah, ominous and creepy. I mean, are there any better words to describe it, honestly? Because there at the end, it was such a great moment of just like hearing him before really seeing him. And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of liked the longer hair, just because I felt like in this I cannot talk right now. I'm getting tired, guys. Apocalyptic world here, yeah.
Something.
What?
Oh, it's either or. I mean, it's a mirror image of apocalypse,
right?
So it can be apocalyptic, or it's an apocalyptic future.
There you go. Yeah, right. Yeah, don't make me say that too many times, though.
I said it too many times. I was tripping over my own.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really something that I could see happening with him, where, and it definitely looks like he's kind of been in this state of not taking care of himself anyway. I mean, obviously in that kind of world, you probably wouldn't be taking care of yourself as much. So his longer hair, I thought, was really freaking cool. He was just creepy. He was creepy. He was at like the way that you want to see the Joker. you know, you want to have this like unnerving feeling, and I feel like this is Leto's Joker. We finally get to see it as it's supposed to be, you know.
See it in a context instead of just like these little snippet scenes. Like we both have been champions for that Jared Leto is a great Joker, and an even better Joker if we got to see what was cut, you know. And this scene proves that he.
Yeah, I think his performance, what got cut, would make you feel very uneasy too.
Yeah, and like, but that's the Joker. You don't know if you're supposed to laugh or if you're supposed to run like hell. Like, that's the feeling that you should have, honestly.
Because even the kids today asked, why is his hair long? I was like, well, you know, that's Jared Leto's hair, and they just had to film this. So, but I liked his inclusion. I thought it worked, especially being in the nightmare scene. At one point, I was kind of thinking to myself, like, is the Joker really there? Or is it kind of like one of the, where Batman sees the Joker, but then Deathstroke acknowledges the Joker, so.
Yeah.
And speaking,
Well, you see all of his badges of all those cops he killed?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow, yeah.
I was going to say, speaking of Deathstroke, we kind of forgot that. I was bummed because I thought there was supposed to be a scene of Deathstroke breaking Luthor out of prison. Like, I thought they had talked about that before. But we got the line. We didn't get the line about shouldn't we have a league of our own. We get the line where Luthor tells Slade that the Batman's real name is Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got Slade responding with, well, I think I will have a drink. All that was to set up the Ben Affleck solo Batman movie. And it's just like makes me wish we got it even more.
So apparently in different universes, different people take out Deathstroke's eye.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In comics, we got his wife. In Arrow, we've got Oliver. And in the DCEU, maybe we've got Batman.
Maybe.
Lex Luthor says an eye for an eye.
It was interesting that we didn't really get any more Lex. Like, we got like maybe 2 lines.
And Lex does not sound as crazy and manic as he did in BVS when he discusses the clarity he found in himself.
I haven't watched that scene on the theatrical in a while. Like, I was wondering, because he says the good doctors at Arkham maybe help me. It makes me wonder that maybe there was some like realigning of himself at Arkham. I just have to watch it again. But I mean, there is so much in this, and there's so many layers that even if you don't like the style, you can't acknowledge what an achievement this movie is.
You can see that people wouldn't like it because of its style. It's a different movie, and how, I mean, you can say it's inflated because there's so much room and so much extra time and scenes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different style, but you can't not say that it's not a good movie.
It makes me wonder, like, what if this was what Zack presented, and they're like, okay, now you have to edit this down to at least, 3.5 hours for theatrical release. Like, I'm like, okay,
what would he have done?
Would it look like? And I thought about like little things here and there. One thing, you cut down the Icelandic chanting because that goes on a little bit long.
We probably wouldn't have had the Wonder Woman and I can't talk right now. I'm getting tired. Alfred scene. With the tea. Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about, like, you also, like, the opening with Bruce Wayne, like, you don't have to show him putting out the campfire or show the scenes of him traveling as long. Like, you could snip that, So there's things you could see, but with this format, it allowed things to breathe and give you, like, everything and just immerse yourself in the world. And for 4 hours, it went by fast. I mean, we've watched it multiple times, and it's gone by quick.
Yeah, the first day, I was exhausted and just plain worn out from work, burnt out from work. And that's why I kind of set my vacation, and it's just a perfect time for the Snyder Cut. And so I ended up crashing early by like 9:30 Wednesday, and I got up at 3 a.m. and watched the entire movie in the dark, in the quiet, with some coffee. And then I took my kids to school, put it back on when I got home, and fell asleep for about 2.5 hours and finished it. And then I put it on and let it play again while I was doing some stuff. And then me and Jamie watched about the first 2 hours of it that night before we went to bed and finished it up the next day.
It's funny, like, Solomon started watching it the other day upstairs. Then Selah started watching it downstairs. And then we went upstairs and we were all kind of finishing it. And then, was it the next day, I think, or later that night, my mother-in-law came over and Selah just restarted it.
She's like, Nana hasn't seen this. Had to show Nana.
So, well, Junia, it was great having you here. We always love hearing your voice.
Glad to be here. I'm also glad for my bed here in a minute, too.
Yeah, we're all tired. We've been talking long.
Me too.
Well, we'll definitely bring up, there's a lot more, I think, discussion points and things to think about. And, yeah, so until next time, James. Until next time, Junia.
Until next
Till
time.
next time.
Remember.
Look up in the sky.
Look up in the sky.
Look in the sky.